Hey friend, my name is Bryce Henson, CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp and one of your co-hosts here at the Fit Body Inside Look. Now this show is for our franchise partners and for those who are interested in joining our brand, where we execute meaningful interviews with our franchise partners, internal HQ team, coaches and clients to be able to provide you more insight and to get more acquainted with our brand and also to showcase the business opportunity available. Thanks so much and enjoy the episode.
Welcome back to the show, friends. I'm sitting down here with Ryan. Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to sit down and just chat a little bit about your business ownership journey. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward
to it. Of course,
yes,
it's my pleasure. So the whole premise of the show is we want to talk to Fit Body Bootcamp owners, especially successful ones like yourself, and just kind of talk about kind of the process and like what got you into Fit Body Bootcamp, what like attracted you to the business, maybe some of the trials and tribulations along the way, but also some of the good things too. So Absolutely. We'll cover all that. But first and foremost, I'd like you to introduce yourself. Just tell us a little bit about who you are, where your location is, and kind of how long that location's been open.
Absolutely. So I opened my location almost 9 years ago. I'm in Cleveland, suburb Lyndhurst, and I think I got into this for so many different reasons, but I think the big thing is seeing where we can change lives, where we can connect with people, and do it with a tribe of people that believe in the mission.
That's awesome. No, and that's great. And we'll touch base really, really deep on kind of like your why and everything else, and kind of what your vision is, and even for Fit Body moving forward, even after 9 years, obviously you still have to have a vision. You can't just let the car keep running without any sort of direction. So just let's talk through. Let's get to know a little bit more about you. What does fitness kind of look like in your life? So maybe from when you were like a kid growing up, like kind of into your adult years, what does fitness look like? Has it always been a priority? Maybe it wasn't a priority, but maybe now it is. Just kind of talk us through it a little bit.
For sure. I was an athlete from a young age. My dad had a ball in my hand before I could walk. I was that kid. Mm-hmm. So it was always organized sports and different stuff like that. And growing up as an athlete, it was very important to me to be present for practice, always be on. I wasn't the kid that was drinking or parties or anything in high school. But when I went to college, that changed. I stepped back from athletics and just wanted to have just an academic experience. But the lack of activity, late nights, ordering food, hanging out, I'd say most people gain the freshman 15. I gained freshman 30 in the first semester.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, coming back after that and just realizing, this doesn't feel good, and having to work at it because I didn't have accountability. I didn't have a structured sport or a practice or a coach for anything that I did for the whole part of my life prior. Mm-hmm. Getting back into the gym and, having, to work at something with a different focus, it was definitely a challenge, but it was obviously something that was worthwhile and important to me. So, at that point, I started looking into, trainers in the area and learning from other coaches and other trainers, because at that point it wasn't my zone of genius, but I could follow a plan.
Totally. Yeah, totally makes sense. And I feel like that's, the case with a lot of athletes, I myself also, I was a high school athlete, played sports all my life, and then same exact scenario, gained a bunch of weight, once I was still eating like I was playing football, but, wasn't working out like it anymore. So that's the case for, it seems to be a lot of our owners, but also too, just our clients, the people that we serve on a day in and day out basis. So definitely feel you there. What were you doing for your profession? What were you doing before Fit Body? Did you have a 9 to 5? What did that kind of look like?
Yeah, so prior to Fit Body, I was in a totally different field, and I was in music marketing for several years. But I went back to school to do my master's in exercise science.
Got it.
I was enjoying what I was doing, but it wasn't a fulfilling, meaningful part of my world. Mm-hmm. And I had some changes going on in my life that just made me reevaluate what was important and where I wanted to make impact. So I finished my master's from Cleveland State, and then I started working for the Cleveland Clinic. I did exercise prescription for chronic disease patients while I ran my private training business full time. And little by little, I think we get stagnant at times, and there's no growth, or just things get monotonous. Mm-hmm. And I knew there had to be something different or more out there that was going to be a game changer.
Yeah, totally. No, and I definitely can relate to that, and I totally feel you on that. So that being said, so you're kind of doing your own thing, kind of like personal training,
mm-hmm.
like private training.
Yep.
What drew you in, and then one, actually, just how did you find Fit Body? How did you discover the mecca that is Fit Body Bootcamp?
For sure. I began following Bedros actually on YouTube, and at that point he had the Fitness Business Summit, and I attended the Fitness Business Summit in the spring of 2015, and at that point I still wasn't sure, what route I wanted to go, but I wanted to see what's happening. So I did my homework, but B had started his 7-figure mastermind. Mm-hmm. So I signed up for that before I even was sure if I was doing Fit Body mm-hmm. or some other next venture. But being around, people that were in the industry, showing what growth could look like in various aspects, I just felt the value of being in the room and proximity.
That's awesome. No, that's great, and that's again a story that's not unlike most owners. They either found Bedros or they found Bryce, and they found somebody that kind of drew them in. Specific to FitBody, so once you kind of made that decision to open your own location, what led you to that? So what brought you into like picking FitBody as opposed to there's other fitness franchises out there,
sure.
obviously. What specifically kind of drew you into FitBody specifically?
I think the alignment with just vision and values, but it wasn't one of those things that needed to be my name and my things. Like, how do we get open as quickly as possible to create impact that, yes, you need to put in the work, but there's an infrastructure behind you supporting it that the foundation is built, but you can take it and run with it.
Totally. Yeah, no, I think that's really awesome, and I'm glad that you made that decision. Obviously, I know you're a very successful owner now, but that's 9 years down the road, and I'm sure like along the way, I'm sure you've gone
bumps
through
and bruises.
100%, yeah, 100%. I feel the same with our location in Mission Viejo. We've been open 11 years. We've had great times, and we've also had some bad times. So, talk me through like that first like 6 to 12 months. Like what did it look like? Like, were you working there full time? Were you coaching? Bryce always likes to use the example. Bryce, our CEO, and he was also my location owner as well.
Yeah,
always likes to use the phrase that he was the janitor, he was the coach. He was the cleanup crew. He was everything. Is the similar situation for you?
Yeah, when you open, it's one of those, holy smokes, like what if nobody comes, and then, oh crap, what if everyone comes?
Yeah, totally.
But no one teaches you out of the gate how to be a leader or what to do or how to show up. You have people that are great at their craft, but running a business is a totally different venture. So the first, you said first 6 months? I started with just myself, and I found someone who was a trainer at another gym that I just knew in the area, who did like very part-time for me, but I was coaching everything and doing lead follow-up and making phone calls and going to get the water tanks when it wasn't, you are the janitor. Everything there is your responsibility, but it's also an opportunity. Within the first 3 months, we had a flood.
Oh, shoot.
Didn't plan for that. I walked in one morning and I'm squish, 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 and the floor is floating. And I was like, I didn't leave it like that yesterday. But, you lean into it and you're like, all right, how do we solve this? But the coolest thing happened at that point because I was terrified. We're open for 3 months. Do I have to close? How long are we closed for? Are we losing members? Like, we just started. But our members had such a buy-in and part of our community and culture and just support and loyalty in those first few months of just being with us that they're like, what do we need? Do you need fans? Do you need the floor, air dryers? Do you need coffee? Like they were just dropping things off.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was expecting, pitchforks and fire of like, we're leaving. And what do you mean you're closed? Like that right there told me we're doing something well. I don't know if we're necessarily doing it right, but we're doing it well.
Yeah, 100%.
And, from there, it's just building upon that trust and that, that support and delivering value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And like as you said, you never know when something's going to happen. So not necessarily a problem we deal with here in California very much. We deal with the flooding very often.
Yeah.
But things happen. Things change. Power goes out. Fires. This, that, or the other. Hurricanes. Things that are totally out of your control. It's not even something like you were mismanaging. You just had the flood happened, and you got through it. But I think it's really awesome to hear that you had such an awesome community and culture within the first 3 months. A lot of times it takes new owners a lot of time to build up that community, a lot of time to build up that culture.
For sure.
Maybe sometimes you start building it one way and then maybe you lose
sideways.
One of your key players and then you got to go the other way and things like that. So that's a testament to you and your team, which it sounds like it was just you and like one other person. It was a small team at the time.
Yeah.
But let's fast forward 9 years and kind of what is your day-to-day looking like now? Like, are you still working in the business? Or are you just more working on the business as a little bit like kind of stepped back?
For sure. I've been off the floor for several years. I'm not officially on schedule coaching. At a certain point, I took that step because my time was better spent working on the business to be able to grow it, but also knowing that I could hand that off and it was in very capable hands on the floor. You've met my head coach, Julie. She's, had a ball, just interacting with you and doing elite and always seeing the events, but, giving her autonomy and saying, hey, this is yours to run with, make the client experience and the programming and the culture, and you give someone autonomy and they own it. There's pride in what they do. It was hard for me to step back because, hey, some of these people had only known me.
Yeah.
And
totally.
Other folks, when they just came in, hey, that's all they know is Julie and Elaine. Like, that's all they had. So for me, most of my time is spent working on getting, recruiting team members, recruiting new members, doing a lot of mastermind stuff, working with some leadership coaches, and, a lot of the other owners. Like, we have a great network that we chat with each other regularly outside of Mastermind or outside of the other events to help each other.
Yeah, 100%. No, I think that's a really awesome point, is the fact that you were able to kind of pull your time back. So it's like your time is better spent. You said it really well. Your time is better spent leading, That's what your time is better spent doing, rather than being on the floor day in and day out on those super early mornings, those super late nights, coaching. At what point, I know you said it was a couple years back, so how many years into the business do you think when you pulled back a little bit?
So right around, I want to say, end of, I'd say 2018 into 19, fully staffed team at that point, and just kind of getting everything and figuring out that lane change of like, hey, you guys are doing this well. I'm going to run parallel until like I'm going to exit the highway, but you're going to keep going. And that was hard. My name wasn't on the schedule anymore, but hey, they loved Coach so and so, and they rolled with it. COVID hit, and that really forced us to take a step back and evaluate like, what does our session schedule look like? Like, what are we doing coming back in? It gave us a chance to kind of like reinvent what we wanted to do when we went back in.
Okay.
And I stayed on site because I wanted to support my team. We didn't know what was going on, what to expect. We were training in place, and all sorts of stuff going on, but I knew they didn't need me for it to run. I just never want them to not feel supported or abandoned. And after 3-4 months being in every morning, not coaching, just being there to support, they're like, we're okay. They're like, we appreciate it, but like, dude, we're good.
Yeah.
We figured out the Zoom, we figured out the mic, we figured out the audio, we figured out work on the business, like we got this.
That's awesome. No, that's really great. And I think it also is a really good point. So anybody that's at home, maybe you're thinking about starting a fitness business or any other business, that drawing back is really important. Like obviously as an entrepreneur, that's the end goal. It's like, hey, I want to spend the time, like my time, how I want to spend it, and not working 9 to 5 every single day in and day out.
Sure.
But something that also is really important, something you touched on, was just being there, not only for your clients, but also there for your team.
Absolutely.
So it's like, if you think you can open a fitness business, especially with something as intimate as FitBody, where we have 20, 30 people in a session, that's not that many people in the grand scheme of things. If they don't know who you are as like the owner and the facilitator, like if they don't know you, anytime there is a big change that comes down the road, I mean, shoot, I even think back to when we changed color schemes. So we used to have those red, white, and blue walls. And then when we decided, hey, we're going to paint the walls gray, have a much sleeker, nicer look, we're going to redo everything, clients were like very upset and stuff. But all it took was Bryce coming out and saying like, hey, this is the reason why we're doing it. And he did so in a really awesome like leadership way.
Yes.
And he told them, it's like, hey, this is why we're doing it. The clients all of a sudden understood, because they're like, oh, we know Bryce.
Yes.
We know Bryce. We know he would never make a decision that, would just for money, or he would never make a decision for that. But they only thought that way because he was always at the facility. And even like to this day, or shortly right before at the time of this filming, Bryce still, like, even as the CEO of the company, he oversees 250 different locations of FitBody across the world. He has like a 90-hour work week. It's crazy. He still gets into the facility at least once a week just to get a workout in. So whether or not he's there like the whole day, like obviously I'm sure he would like to be there a little bit more. He's just not able to, but he still goes. It would be very easy for him to say, oh, I live too far away. Oh, I got too busy of a schedule.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't got time. And one of his main priorities, and something that I'm sure you also think too, one of his priorities was not just to come in and see the clients. Obviously, that's a big plus that he gets to come see the people, that he knows and the clients. But he just wanted to maintain relationships with myself, Coach John, all of our other coaches. He want the coaches to, you want to be seen by your coaches, because, if the only time they ever see you is at like a quarterly meeting or at, like a state of the business or something like that, all of a sudden there's this disconnect, between the owner and the team. And it makes it a lot harder, again, when those hard decisions come up, whether that be parting ways with a team member or, like, again, changing to the programming or something. Your team's going to be very resistant because they're like, who's this guy? Like, I don't know Ryan. Like, I don't know Ryan, but it sounds the exact opposite with you. So the next point I kind of want to touch on is just like your team. So talk to me a little bit about, because I always stress the importance, especially with brand new owners and brand new franchise partners, is you got to build a good team, but it's not enough to just hire a good team. Like, you could hire the greatest person in the world, but if you're not actively working towards getting them better and investing your time, they're probably going to end up leaving, or you're going to have to, what I say, free up their future. Yeah, 100%, which I know you like that phrase as well. But talk to me just a little bit about some of the things you do to kind of look for teammates, and then some of the things you do with your team to kind of keep them there, to nurture them.
For sure. I spoke with another owner that actually reached out to me right before we came, and she came to visit my location. She's about 45 minutes away from me, and her first question was, when do I start hiring? I said 5 minutes ago, because it takes time. Working with the team, being able to be around them and watch that build and grow and prosper is so fulfilling. It's also one of the most challenging aspects. I've been, fortunate enough to, have a great group of coaches, mentors, and other groups that I've been part of that really help teach me how to lead and have outside eyes and accountability. So looking at, team building for us, I messed up a whole bunch in the beginning. I'll still mess up. my goal, I tell my team this all the time, I'm going to make mistakes. My goal is to not make the same mistake twice. So when it comes to, leadership and building and growing and creating an experience, FitBody, Mastermind has been amazing. Sending them to elite trainings has been fantastic. We have done a lot of work in leadership coaching with Rich. So he's been instrumental in our success in our team building for the last probably 18 months or so. But also how I show up and how I can support my team and understanding their communication styles, understanding how they receive feedback. Mm-hmm. But how we can come together and understand one another. So having, a regular cadence of L10 meetings, or we brought Robert Linkle to our facility. It was bonding. Mm-hmm. We invited other locations to come do that with us. So I think they know that, hey, I want to not just grow a business, but I want to grow them as people. And if you invest in people, they're not worker bees. They're not machines. What we do is taxing. It's exhausting.
Yeah, 100%.
We're not going to run 13 sessions a day anymore.
Yeah.
Don't run your team into the ground.
That's good.
COVID pulled us back. We're going to do 7 sessions a day, and this is where we start back from. But I think if you tell them you're going to do something, do it. If you say you're going to follow through and you drop the ball, own it. Because if there's a lack of trust, they're no longer bought into the mission or they're not buying into you. Mm-hmm. But when you were mentioning how people make change is scary, whether positive or negative. But if you can frame it and understand why, when things happen on the floor, changes are being made, I do have a relationship with a lot of the members, but right now, Julie is my head coach. She's been the face of it for so long. At this point, those messages, they come from Julie because they're bought into her. Mm-hmm. She knows that it's going to come down the pipeline, but they understand why. They will follow her, their level of buy-in to her. They would follow her into a burning building and not ask a question because they trust her. That is a huge, accolade to her and her performance, but also her job now is to build more leaders. Mm-hmm. So as we shift schedule, as we bring in new team members, as we try to align, it's scary for her to think about being less coaching on the floor, mm-hmm. but gives her a chance to build an army of coaches. But we need outside eyes to do that because that wasn't always in our toolbox.
Mm-hmm. 100%. No, and I think that's a really awesome lesson in leadership is kind of delegating things out, but also just having instilling that trust because it's something very similar. I'm also the head coach of my facility here in Mission Viejo, and one of the best things that I've learned over the years is having Bryce, as the owner, end up trusting me to help make decisions, and he always provides an ear. If I have a qualm with something or if I don't agree, we talk it out, and it's a fair fight. So it's never I'm the owner, this is happening, this is what's going on. It's more hey, this is what we're looking into doing, this is the vision, this is the why.
Yep.
How do you guys feel about this? Are you guys bought into this? And they make sure the full team's bought in before anything changes whatsoever. And it's just one of the many things that I love about FitBody and things like that. Switching gears just a little bit, and you mentioned it a couple of times. The audience at home probably doesn't know what mastermind means, what elite training means.
Absolutely.
Talk us through just a little bit about kind of your experience through the mastermind. Hey, what is it? What do we do in the mastermind trainings? What do we do at elite training? What are some of the things? And that way, it can showcase just the awesome benefits that coaches, owners, admins, and stuff get from those things.
I think having, an ongoing education and people in your ear that are doing the things, better than you are or further ahead, you can understand how to avoid some of the problems that they had. And, looking forward, hey, what can I expect in this journey? But also being around people that, hey, they're having a problem now. When I first opened, I can help them with that. So when you kind of have, we talk about, hey, proximity is power and your net worth is in your network. Who are the people that you're spending the most amount of time with? Who are you learning from? So with FitBody Mastermind, that's been a game changer because we have a regular cadence. We have meetings every Thursday. I'm on Zoom with, these owners and some of their teams. Mm-hmm. You guys are pouring into us with assets and resources and connections that we wouldn't have outside of that mastermind. So when it gets into culture building, when it gets into, training a team, when it gets into running a business, marketing, framework, sales, all the things that is the life force to keep us going, it's not naturally installed. So when you have access to that, it's amazing. So outside of just weekly calls, we have 3 times in person together for 2 days of, targeted focus points that we will all leave with at least one, if not multiple nuggets that will help us grow our business, grow our impact, and grow our influence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I can definitely agree with you. I love having those meetings. I love being on those mastermind calls.
Absolutely.
Obviously, we see each other a lot. But yeah, no, it really is just so awesome to see a franchise model. So FitBody Bootcamp is a franchise at the end of the day. But it's just so cool to see a franchise model where people aren't in competition with one another. So I feel like the problem with a lot of franchises is many times, like especially if they're in close proximity to each other, like let's say they're in the next town over, like somebody's thought process might be like, hey, I need to outperform the other one, or I need to take members from them, or I need to make more money than they do. I don't get that feeling, and I don't think you would either with any of the FitBody franchise partners. Like it's everybody just wants to help raise the ship, like so they say a rising tide raises all ships, and I truthfully like think that that's the case here with FitBody. I think it's really awesome, and like you said, owners reach out to each other, and it's like it's great having owners that have been in the brand for so long, like yourself, especially for our new owners. So maybe somebody that's sitting at home watching this episode, maybe they join the brand in the next 6 months. Who knows? They might be reaching out to you and asking questions. Maybe they see this episode and they're like, "Oh, Ryan seems like a great guy. I'm gonna pick their brain." But I just think that's like one of the most important parts about FitBody. So doing all those trainings. Now I know there's a lot of stuff for owners. Is there more like coaching help? So like what have you seen? And I know maybe 9 years ago we didn't have the same level of stuff, but our franchise has come a long way since then. What are some of the things like your coaches can go through to kind of help them level their game up?
Absolutely. The evolution of not just our location, but the brand as a whole has been really cool to watch because of the support, the assets, and the resources. When it comes to our team, really getting them inside the FitBody Academy is kind of the umbrella that houses all of the processes and systems that we're using, running, or working through. So they have access to that. We can assign certain courses and modules for them to watch that are coach facing, getting them involved with some of the elite trainings. So being able to send them, once or twice a year to events that is specifically coach facing. When you talk about what are the metrics of floor coaching, what are the metrics of mic coaching, what does that look like? What are we modeling? Because it's one thing to watch a video, it's another thing to square off with somebody and be in a room of energy that like lifts you up. And I sent Julie to the one with you actually, last October, and I got a text from her on break, and then on her way out here, her flight was delayed. The next one was going on. Like she was exhausted. She got in. She showed up here. She's like, Ryan, I am on fire. This is the exact room that I've needed to be in. She's like, thank you. Like I'm gonna come home on freaking fire.
That's so awesome.
And she did.
Oh, that's great.
So like kudos and just thank you for to your influence.
Oh, of course. Well, no, I love like my main goal, is to provide all the knowledge that I have, almost a decade of experience, like with FitBody specifically. Like I had no prior fitness knowledge leading into FitBody, and I've learned everything on the back end. And I do everything I can. Like it's the same thing that goes with the owners. Like I myself am not a FitBody Bootcamp owner. I'm just the head coach at the facility. But no, I love just pouring into all the other coaches, and those elite trainings, man. Those are awesome. Those are just the best times, and something that I feel like a lot of other franchises, and I won't name names, but there's plenty of other gyms that actually most that don't do this. They don't have any time. Like yes, they might have some owner trainings, like they might have like a week summit retreat or something like that goes on, but what about the person that deals with the clients the most? And that's the coach. Yes. That's the trainer. That's the person that's at the facility in front of people. And that's something that was lacking even with FitBody. A lot of times, like our FitBody trainings were, like business centered and like admin centered and things like that. So having like that really specific coach training, I think has been really helpful and been a really awesome innovation, which I hope people listening at home, I hope when you guys open your FitBody Bootcamp, you'll be able to send your coaches and come hang out with me for a couple of days. And then my other awesome team on the leadership team here at HQ. It's really, really great. So that's super awesome. So we've talked a lot about, the great things that we've seen. You've learned a lot of leadership. You've made a lot of awesome, like lifelong friends. You've probably made some money along the way too. But I want to shift gears a little bit because, business ownership, it's awesome. And it's great once you can finally pull back and you can have some time freedom and you can focus on the things you really love. But there's things like floods and there's things that don't go so well. So maybe besides the flood that happened 3 months in, what were some of like the biggest kind of trials and like some of the biggest hardships that you've gone through in being a business owner?
The running joke, it's funny, literally when I left the other day, the running joke is every time I travel, some type of natural disaster or catastrophe is going to happen. Power goes out, it's raining, the roof is leaking, ceiling's falling through. It's the running joke. You don't plan for that. But with all the amazing things that happen, there's a lot of trials and things we get wrong. Working through, team members and getting the right people and also recognizing, do I not have the right people? How do we either coach them up? How do we make sure that they're on the same, vision and buy-in? Because I can't have someone in my boat that's, if we're not rowing in the same direction, that's also drilling holes in it. One of my hardest things to do was to, part ways with someone who had been with me for almost 7 years. And I didn't want I didn't want to fail my team, and I knew that they were struggling, and I knew this was a very hard decision, and we did everything we could to try to get somebody, back on board or aligned, and it just became clear that it wasn't. And, freeing someone up for their future was the right move.
Mm-hmm.
That shattered my heart because I cared about this person so much. But it was affecting the team, it was affecting the member experience, it was affecting everyone's livelihood, and I couldn't allow that. I also wanted my team to see that I did everything I could to try and help rather than just immediately cut strings, because I would go to bat for them. And learning how to have those conversations and lean into leadership, we talk about personality styles and, what are our strengths, but where are our areas of development? And for some personality styles, we're people pleasers. And recognizing, is that doing us a disservice? You're going to have members that are going to be upset with something. You're going to have people that don't like the workout, or I missed, we used to do it this way, or at my old place. Like, everyone's going to come in with things, but if you can really develop a rapport and communication, you can have those harder conversations. I've been screamed at, I've had people waving fingers at, and, my team has gone through it, and if you can arm and prepare them as best as possible to handle those situations, but you never know what's going to come up.
True. Yeah, no, true. And that's a great lesson in leadership. And definitely one of the hardest parts about it, even just being on the leadership team, is having to have those hard conversations. I've had to do it many times, we're even just writing a coach up for something as simple as being 5 minutes late a couple times in a week or something like that.
Yeah.
It's still super important because, even 5 minutes, it's hey, if we waste that 5 minutes, we're wasting, the client experience is going to suffer, because we usually use that 5 minutes to do a run through of the workout,
Absolutely.
or to do a run through of this, or to talk about the workout. And then all of a sudden we start the 5:15 a.m. session, and then we're not on the same page. And all of a sudden you're demoing
It's
a different
clunky. The
exercise.
workout is, messed up. They're confused. The first 8 minutes are where are we going?
100%. But one of the best things that I've learned is to have those conversations, because I in our facility specifically, I can reference back, we've had coaches in the past that probably should have had their futures freed up long before we
Same.
did. And I didn't have the leadership skills.
Yep.
And even Bryce didn't have the leadership skills to get rid of, I call them cancerous coaches.
Yes.
They didn't have the skills or the resources or the know-how to get rid of that cancer before it spread. And then guess what? It spread. And then when we did remove the cancer, we also removed a lot of other things kind of went with it.
Yeah.
Clients left.
Yeah.
The mood, the culture was down, and it was just really unfortunate situation. So that's a testament to you and way to go on kind of making that tough decision. As I'm sure, like you said, it broke your heart. But also it's just a testament to your character and how loving the love you have for your team is really important, because at the end of the day, as a business owner, you do need to be intertwined into your team. So I do my best, just as the head coach of the facility. I want to be a part of these people's lives.
Sure.
I want to know what's going on outside of the gym. I know they're here for the 4 hours in the morning and maybe 3 hours in the evening when we're doing our split shifts. But what else is going on? Because at the end of the day, if I don't know those things, and then so-and-so, let's say I have used one of my coaches, all of a sudden Ryan's been down in the dumps the last couple of weeks and his coaching has been suffering and things like that. And all it would have taken was me just asking, hey, how are you doing? Is everything going well? Is there something going on? Is there anything I can help with? And he lets me know he's got this crisis going on at home, and that's what's been affecting him. It's not just that he's a bad coach. Maybe his coaching has been poor. It's that, hey, there's something else going on. And that's something a lot of business owners don't see. So they see someone come in with a poor performance and they just go, cut, done. Or vice versa, they come in with a poor performance, then they don't care enough to ask about it.
Yes.
And they just say, oh, the problem will correct itself.
It will never correct itself. It will usually get worse. Ignoring it does not fix it.
100%.
I'm sure anyone in life has tried that. Doesn't work.
No.
But if you can, obviously identify it, when there's a gap in communication, that's where assumptions start filling in. I don't assume that anyone comes into work and is I'm going to do a terrible job today.
Yeah.
You never know what's happening. So if we can give the relationship and the trust building to ask the hard questions, I care about how they're doing, because how they show up, what's going on the other part of their day affects how they show up with each other.
100%.
Or, my perception could be totally different. So there are times I'll go to Julie and be like, you have boots on the ground more than me. This is what I'm noticing, but what does it feel like on your side? Because I don't want to make a decision without checking with her, because that affects how everybody shows up. So at that point, recognizing when do you need to have conversations, who do you need to involve with it, but what is the outcome you're looking for? And what could happen, on each side of it, so you can prepare your team when people ask questions why, or they don't understand why so-and-so is not here anymore, or why did the workout change.
Yeah.
How do you calm that down and still maintain trust?
100%. Yeah. And I think just open communication, I think it's just the best way to do it. Obviously, if there's like, stuff that's a little more sensitive, you got to hold some stuff back.
Yep.
But yeah, certainly stuff we've dealt with on our facility. And I'll give a testament actually to Bryce. We just transferred ownership of our location just in the last month or two. So it's been very, very recent for us. But by getting ahead of it and, controlling what the clients, the communication and stuff that goes out, there was no issue at all.
Everyone, you want to own the narrative.
Yep, everyone was very happy. It was all good. It was a very smooth transition.
Yep.
But me, I was sweating bullets that whole week thinking
Absolutely.
oh my gosh, people are going to jump ship. People are going to go crazy. People are going to lose it. Nothing.
We've had moments like that as well because you think the worst case scenario, everyone's leaving or they're going to uprise. Stay ahead of it. Own the narrative. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, if you try to hide or get shady or just put aside, people aren't dumb. They want to know who they're doing business with. They want to know who's leading them, whether it's an owner, head coach, or whoever they're developing that relationship with. Mm-hmm. But we have to do it consistently.
Definitely.
If it's not consistently, that trust erodes. And it's my job to make sure that things are running the way they should. And when it comes to the floor experience, that head coach role, they're owning the client experience. They're coaching other coaches. They're going through the workouts, the programming. And her voice often is, stronger and more present in their head than mine. And that's fine. It doesn't need to be about me. It's not about us. And we get stuck in that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I always say it's not called Ryan's Fit Body Boot
No.
Camp. It's Fit Body Boot Camp, So it's we're one big family. So I think that's really, really awesome. But now that we've talked about some of the trials and some of the hardships that you had through a business owner, let's shift gears a little bit and let's go into kind of more positive realm. So hey, what are some of your favorite things about owning a Fit Body Boot Camp? What are some of the things that just make you happy,
For sure. I think, coming from different backgrounds, of all of us, being able to meet at one common place because where our location is located geographically, it's at an intersection of a variety of different demographics in different cities. Mm-hmm. So what's really cool is to see people coming together in one space that would probably never meet anywhere else in life except there.
Oh yeah.
And they're making new friends, they're learning things about each other, they're inviting them over for different holidays together, and just seeing that melting pot of inclusiveness is amazing. But when you get to see someone's health improve that is no longer on 3 different blood pressure medications, or they can get down on the floor and play with their kids, or go up and down the stairs. Those are the moments that are life-changing for somebody. We had someone that, and I think I've shared this story, her first goal was to be able to put down her socks by herself. Her partner had to help her put on socks. Yeah. We're 357 pounds, I believe, when we first met. And, she lost 119 pounds.
Wow.
She wanted to put on her socks, and she wanted to go on a ride at Disney. And I get a text message from her. It was her fiance. They were traveling for Disney World, and I got a message saying, I just got on a ride at Disney. I'm in tears, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, that's awesome. That's incredible.
Those are the things that are life-changing for people. Yes, we teach them how to squat through their heels and tighten their core, and but the things that allows them to do in the rest of their day, priceless.
100%, and I firmly agree with you, and that's definitely one of my favorite things about being a Fit Body Boot Camp coach is just seeing that happen.
Yeah.
And like you said, it a lot of times people think about the X's and O's, they think about the numbers, they think all about pounds, but just getting that text message of hey, I fit on the ride at Disneyland, that's the kind of thing that chokes even me up.
Yeah.
I'm not a big emotional guy, but that even gets me going just a little bit. So that's really, really awesome, and I'm so happy for you, and I'm so happy that you're able to inspire fitness and change so many lives. What I always say is you're taking it one person at a time. In your whatever city or whatever state that you're in, you're taking it one person at a time. So I think that's really, really awesome. So kudos to you for having the passion and the purpose to do it, which is really, really awesome. As we kind of get toward the end here, one thing I always like to ask people in these interviews is these episodes are mainly tailored toward people that are maybe sitting at home, maybe they're thinking about starting a Fit Body Boot Camp, maybe they're thinking about starting a business of some sort.
Sure.
What kind of advice would you give them? So maybe let's go back a few years. Let's go back 9 years ago. What would you have given Ryan? What would you give?
Yeah.
What advice would you give Ryan 9 years ago in order to kind of motivate them into business ownership and into owning a Fit Body Boot Camp?
For sure. I think, you're never, I don't want to say ready. If I waited till I was ready to do something, I probably wouldn't have done anything. You're going to be scared. You're going to wonder is it this right move? Do it scared. When it comes to planning and logistics, they always say, it's going to be 3 times as expensive. It's going to take twice as long. But in the end, it's definitely worth it. Surround yourself with the people that are going to be your biggest cheerleaders and raving fans, but also the people that are going to challenge you and, make sure that you're being true to the vision in yourself. If you surround yourself with yes men, you're not going to grow. And I think when we get comfy of hey, am I hiring people to hang out with and be friends with, or am I hiring people that are going to, really move the bus forward? Mm-hmm. getting outside eyes and mentors, huge. My dad, with his business, he was always a proponent of continuing education, and I went, full circle with that as well. And the benefit that I got from masterminds, the benefit that I got from the different trainings and other coaches and people we've crossed paths with have been instrumental in my success, because you can't walk in thinking you know everything. I'm great at coaching, I don't know how to run a business. Or, hey, I'm going to run a business, I know nothing about fitness. Like, are you going to be an absentee owner, or are you going to be treated as a hobby? Because you'll never have a business if you treat it as a hobby or a side gig. And I've seen too many people afraid to fully lean into that lane. Not a right or wrong, but if you want to get launched and make this as successful as possible, you need to go all in.
100%. No, and I couldn't have said it better. Well, Ryan, that was awesome. Some really awesome content. Like, I'm sure a lot of people will get motivated to get off their butts and to get in and to open their own Fit Body Bootcamp. Friends, thank you so much for watching today's episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next episode of Fit Body Inside Look.